Alright, so now that UFC 328 just wrapped up in between Hamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland, with Sean Strickland getting the win by split decision, I'm going to give basically my three takeaways on the card. What should they do? Things that I saw, things that I noticed, things that should happen. So first and foremost, as you can see right here, the average broadcast announcer is 41 to 47 years old. Unfortunately, I think that Bruce Buffer being 68 years old, I think he's kind of gotten over the hump. It might be a bit of a hot take, but when we think that he's 68 years old, the average broadcaster is 41 to 47, with some of them pushing 50, especially in the NFL, they push 60 or older. But he's only got a couple of years left. And so I can see where they're trying to push in this new announcer. Now, you guys might not know of him, but it's a guy named Joe Martinez. Joe Martinez was with Invicta. He was with Invicta FC. He was with the UFC. Uh, he's the American ring announcer, but recently he's been signed to the UFC, going and doing a couple of their shows. He was over at UFC Perth. He did a couple of the fight nights, a couple of the Apex shows, and he does show a lot of promise. Because where Bruce Buffer brings out the nostalgia of the old days, the Chuck Liddell, the Tito Ortiz, it's the old tried and true. Everybody's ready for this. Everybody is ready when Bruce Buffer steps into the ring. But Joe Martinez brings a bit of a different flair to it. Now I'm going to turn down my TV so that it doesn't echo. But when he was in Perth, first and foremost, he was absolutely astonishing talking about Jack Della Maddalena the entire time. Like, he has a different type of inflection that I really enjoy. Now, there was one part where he does, like, he's doing this, and it's amazing. Where is it? Oh, it's right here. And let me actually back up a tiny bit. 58 seconds.
The world is ready. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie!
You don't hear that from Bruce Buffer. You don't hear that. Now, to be fair, there's not really anywhere else in the world you can do that other than Perth. But he brings a different style to everything. I could see him, if he's going to UFC Baku, doing something there. If he goes over to Britain, he has something there. But I can see he's going to be a very good replacement, and I feel like he should be doing most of the shows, and then Bruce Buffer should be doing UFC 328, the UFC White House card, UFC 329, 330, the numbered cards, not the UFC Fight Nights, not the Apex cards. That should definitely be Joe Martinez. Get himself in there, and then I gotta be honest, I feel as though the UFC should try to sign this guy named, I'm not gonna try the last name, Hus Ragip. Only 30 plus. He's known for working at different places, boxing MC. He's made headlines as the London DLR announcer. I feel like he would work with a bit of training. If he was to go underneath Joe Martinez and Bruce Buffer, let's say Joe Martinez does this for 5 years, Bruce Buffer retires, and then they sign Hus. Have Hus do 1 or 2 shows a month, and then bring him into it. Because that's what they're kind of doing with some of these UFC refs, which I'll also get to. Because each of the UFC referees make around 1,000 to 2,500 per fight. Top tier referees, 10,000. Now, we all know of the Herb Deans, the Mike Beltrans, the, oh my gosh, who is that guy? Steve Mazzagatti. I'm just naming them off up until like Mario Yamasaki. If he dies, he dies. But we don't know about the new ones coming in, the new referees, and they've been doing a good job. None of us know any of them. But I took the liberty of Googling who the new people were, and the first one on the card was Danielle Curzon. Danielle Curzon, British bodyguard, MMA referee. She's been doing this since 2012. She had her license as an MMA referee in Indiana. Only 43, and she was there for UFC 328 in New Jersey. She did an amazing job at the first fight of the card. Victor Ribeiro, who, if you guys don't know, he's one of the jiu-jitsu YouTube guys. He'll show you how to do an omoplata. I watched him years ago. Years ago. But he's a known MMA fighter, nicknamed Shaolin. But he's had a bunch of great fights, and he's getting into refereeing, and I think he did a great job at that Tatsuro Taira fight throughout the 5 rounds, letting it go, getting a good angle throughout the entirety of it. I think even Danielle, throughout her fight with Clayton Carpenter and Ochoa, there wasn't that much of a, where like the ref being a part of the fight. She was right there having the angle, being able to see the entirety of the fight. So I feel like the new age of referees and the new age of announcers are going to start coming in. That's my first takeaway. Second takeaway, Hamzat should go up to 205. Now, he's stating on Twitter that he wants the rematch with Strickland. He says it right here. Let me know when you're ready, Sean Strickland. This was right after that split decision. I feel as though they should. My only takeaway, though, is that I don't think he is. Reason I say that is because I started looking into it, and I realized that MMA Guru tweeted out, just told Dana White backstage he doesn't want the rematch, and he wants to move up to light heavyweight. Now, MMA Guru wants him to go up against Paulo Costa. I don't like that. I'd like to see him go up against, like, I don't know, a Yuri Prohashka, somebody who's been a light heavyweight, not somebody who also is coming up from middleweight. But he puts this out on May 10th, and it was tweeted out May 9th. So that's got me thinking, what is making Hamzat go back and forth between wanting to do this? And my takeaway is that I think he can't make the weight cut anymore. Which is crazy to say because he used to make 170, but he's now struggling to make 185. He's a small middleweight, and now he's thinking about making it up to light heavyweight and trying to wrestle with those guys. I don't think that's going to happen. Him going up against a person like Khalil Roundtree, yeah, that'd be perfect. That'd be a tailor-made fight for him. He trains with Khalil Roundtree, so he's probably thinking that. But he's not going to be ready for the Jan Blachowicz. He's not going to be ready for the Alexander Rakic, the Yuri Prohashka, the Jamal Hills. Kind of Jamal Hill, I don't know. Depends on the footwork. But it's a bit of a back and forth, and I feel as though Hamzat Chimaev is getting told not by his manager, but by Kadyrov, in a way. Now, I did hear this from the Wade Concept. Shout out Wade. Love the YouTube channel. But he's talking about how possibly Kadyrov is talking to Hamzat, saying that you got to stay in this middleweight division and grab that UFC belt back. Because if you move up to 205, everything that Sean Strickland said, everything he said in the build-up, all that trash he was talking, all that stuff he was saying about Chechnya, everything he was saying about the dictator, him, it all is going to show a bit of cowardness from Hamzat and Kadyrov. So I can see where Wade is coming from, where he thinks Kadyrov is telling him to go down. I think it's more so he thought about it. He thought the fight over and realized it's a split decision. I could probably get this guy again. It was probably just an off day. I probably just didn't have that good of a weight cut. I wasn't ready. I wasn't fully into the fight. Because, I mean, he did win a couple of rounds. Don't get me wrong. But he just wasn't able to win the entirety of the fight because his grappling wasn't able to work out, especially in the second round. But him going up to light heavyweight and getting Paulo Costa wouldn't be a great idea. So I feel as though my second takeaway, Hamzat needs to go up to 205, and he needs to go up against a contender, not somebody else that's coming up from middleweight who's missed weight at middleweight and Paulo Costa fighting Marvin Vettori. Like, no, he needs to get either back in there with Sean Strickland for a rematch, ASAP, prove it wasn't a fluke, or not Paulo Costa, but go up against like I don't know, Jamal Hill or something. You know what I mean? A big dude, big guy, been in 205, but not the best defensive grappling. Not the best defensive takedowns, you know? And then, yeah, this one was just another UFC announcement. And then my last takeaway that I just kind of wanted to say is that they need to start doing more creative things throughout the entirety of the broadcast because it's starting to get repetitive. Like, if the co-main and main event did not show out the way that they did, that UFC card would have been nothing, in my opinion. Like, I would not, nobody would have really been talking about it the same way that they were. Hamzat made it a big deal. Sean made it a big deal. But the UFC isn't making it a big deal. They aren't making any of these fights a big deal. I had to tell people that the UFC White House had a press conference that was showing everything. People don't know. Back in 2018, when Conor McGregor was on the scene, every single person knew what fight was going on with Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz. Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz 2. Him versus Habib. Him versus Alvarez. I heard him versus Alvarez in 2018. And I haven't heard a single person, to be fair, they're like 25 to 30. But I haven't heard a single person talk about Alex Pereira, talk about Ciryl Gane, talk about even John Jones. There's no star, there's no creativeness. So the UFC themselves needs to do something to make the product better. Do something. Even if it's just change the color of the canvas from just a gray with a bunch of logos to just like a green or some shit. Like, change the cage colors. If it's in UFC Perth, make it, the Australian color, make it a blue cage. Blue cage with like little reds, little red cage, little things. You know what I mean? Like, make it better. Make it a better thing for us to watch. Because having to go through an hour and a half of commercials, to be fair, through an 8-hour broadcast, but an hour and a half of commercials is wild, especially when you're paying. Like, me personally, I'm paying for Paramount without ads, but I'll still get the quote unquote ads that says ads in progress. So I just wanted to say those are my three takeaways on UFC 328. Later on this week, I'm going to talk about the Netflix card and the UFC card coming up later on this week. Other than that, I guess I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.